Greetings everyone, it's Kyla, and today we are going to discuss with you the first reading under Philosophy 1 entitled The Value of Philosophy based on Bertrand Russell's perspective. Without further ado, let us dive into these 3 guiding questions that will focus today's discussion. First, what is philosophy? Second, how do we identify philosophical questions and problems? And third, how do we develop an inquisitive and speculative attitude? By the end of this, I hope we see why philosophy, even without definite answers, remains as one of the most valuable human pursuits. We are also to consider in view of the fact that many men under the influence of science or practical affairs are inclined to doubt whether philosophy is anything better than innocent but useless trifling, hair-splitting distinctions, and controversies on matters concerning which knowledge is impossible. So let me begin with a challenge. Why study philosophy at all? Many people dismiss it as useless because it does not produce concrete results like science or technology. They ask, what practical good does it do? Russell acknowledges this criticism, but argues that it comes from misunderstanding what philosophy is truly for. So it is exclusively among the goods of the mind that the value of philosophy is to be found, and only those who are not indifferent to these goods can be persuaded that the study of philosophy is not a waste of time. So what exactly is philosophy? The word philosophy comes from the Greek philo meaning love and sophia meaning wisdom. Therefore, it is not just a subject or a course, but a way of seeking wisdom about existence, knowledge, and values. Unlike practical skills, philosophy does not aim at producing tools or wealth. Its purpose is to enrich the mind and broaden our understanding of life. Russell contrasts the so-called practical man with the philosophical mind. In fact, the practical mind only recognizes material needs such as food, shelter, and work, but he neglects the need of the mind like meaning, truth, and understanding. Russell reminds us that even if society is free from poverty and disease, we still need philosophy and able to nourish our minds. Physical science, through the medium of inventions, is useful to innumerable people who are wholly ignorant of it. Thus, the study of physical science is to be recommended not only or primarily because of the effect on the student, but rather on the effect on mankind in general. Thus, utility does not belong to philosophy. Despite of all the questions, we cannot deny the fact that in earlier times, philosophy covered all kinds of knowledge, including the study of heavens. What we now call astronomy was once part of philosophy, and even Newton's famous work on physics and motion was still referred to as a natural philosophy. One reason people misunderstand philosophy is because it rarely gives definite knowledge. Science thrived on certainty, but when questions become answerable with evidence, they leave philosophy and become science. For example, astronomy was once part of philosophy, psychology too. Philosophy is the frontier. It deals with the questions that are yet to be settled. Therefore, philosophy justifies that there are many deep questions, especially those connected to our spiritual life, that the human mind cannot fully solve. Unless our intellect changes into something far beyond its current capacity, some mysteries will remain unanswered. In short, philosophy reminds us of the limits of a human knowledge while also encouraging us to keep seeking the truth. Now it got me thinking, if most philosophies became science, what kind of questions remain philosophical? Well, Russell gives examples such as, does the universe have purpose? Is consciousness permanent or just accidental? Are good and evil meaningful to the universe or only to us? These are the questions science cannot yet resolve and may never resolve. And that brings us to the heart of Russell's view. Philosophy has little certainty. But its certainty is precisely what makes it valuable. By living with open questions, we cultivate imagination, humility, and intellectual freedom. Russell explains that the true value of philosophy lies in its uncertainty. Therefore, without philosophy, A person tends to live trapped within unexamined beliefs shaped by society, tradition, or habit. Life then feels fixed and unquestionable. But once we begin to philosophize, even ordinary things open up to deeper questions, showing us that the world is not as simple or final as it seems. Philosophy frees us from the prejudice and invites us to think critically. As Russell writes, the value of philosophy is in fact to be sought largely in its very uncertainty. This uncertainty frees us from dogmatism, which is the rigid belief that our assumptions are final. Instead of closing doors, philosophy opens them, showing us a range of possibilities.
Hi class, I'm Alicia David and the question is, what will happen without philosophy? Without philosophy, if we don't question or reflect, we might assume the world is simple, fixed, and self-explanatory. Living without philosophy means just going along with what most people think, accepting what your culture teaches you, and never really questioning if those ideas are right or true. But with philosophy, it helps us see and look at the world more deeply instead of seeing it as simple and dull. We realize that it's full of possibilities, and even with simple things like love or time, can raise a big, meaningful question. Philosophy brings back the sense of wonder and curiosity about life. The role of wonder. It keeps us seeking question, learning, and looking for new ideas. It helps us stay curious and wondering. For Plato and Aristotle, this wonder sparked the search for truth and understanding, while Russell explains it as the driving force behind exploring the universe. Enlarging the self. It widens our perspective, taking us beyond narrow self-interest. It encourages us to reflect deeper truths and enrich both our thinking and moral imagination. It helps us grow by pushing us to think beyond our own wants and needs. It opens our mind to bigger ideas, helping us imagine what is right. Contemplative value of philosophy. We look at the reality without bias, seeing beyond our interests, and we recognize harmony between ourselves and the world around us. Philosophy helps us step outside our own little bubble and feel connected to the bigger world around us. Let's tackle what is philosophy versus self-assertion. Philosophy goes beyond the self, opening us to larger truths and larger perspective, while self-assertion is the act of confidently expressing your own thoughts, needs, or identity. The free intellect means thinking openly and fairly, without selfishness or prejudice, and looking at the bigger picture instead of just personal bias. It's the ability to think independently, rationally, and critically. And now the connection of philosophy and justice. Philosophy helps us to be fair in our thinking and see ourselves as part of the humanity. It helps us think more clearly and fairly so we can act with justice. It opens our mind and hearts, guiding us to care not just about ourselves, but people everywhere.
Hello everyone, my name is Liz Antoinette Estayag, and I will be continuing our presentation about Bertrand Russell. Now, from earlier presentations, we've learned how philosophy shapes our thinking, challenges our assumptions, and nurtures intellectual growth. Now, for my part, I'll be discussing how philosophy relates to freedom, the kinds of questions and problems it explores, and the attitudes it develops in us. I'll also highlight its practical value, how it helps us in personal reflection, leadership, and resilience in facing uncertainty. Now, let's begin with how Bertrand Russell connects philosophy with freedom. Philosophy and freedom. Philosophy makes us citizens of the universe, frees us from narrow hopes and fears, and enlarges our sense of belonging. Russell believed that philosophy gives us freedom. It frees us from narrow hopes and fears and makes us citizens of the universe. Through philosophy, our sense of belonging grows. We no longer see ourselves as limited, but as part of something greater. And one way to achieve this freedom is by asking the right questions. This leads us to philosophical questions. Now, philosophical questions are quite unique because they are not merely academic exercises, but they also engage us with something deeper. Philosophical questions consist of open-ended questions, which means no definitive empirical answers yet. It also engages our most profound concerns about truth, value, and purpose. It also challenges our assumptions and expands our perspective. Now, these inquiries are essential because they push us beyond the boundaries of our everyday thinking. They encourage us to explore the ultimate meanings that underlie our experiences, prompting us to ask not just how something happens, but why it matters. This is where philosophical problems come in. To truly engage with these deep questions, we need certain tools and attitudes. First, let's discuss recognizing assumptions and biases. This involves understanding the lens through which we view the world. It's vital to identify these so that we can critically analyze evidence and arguments. Next, we have the exploration of multiple possibilities. Philosophy encourages us to consider different angles and solutions, broadening our understanding of any given problem. Finally, accepting uncertainty as part of growth is key. Embracing the unknown can be challenging, but it's crucial for intellectual development. Remember, these philosophical tools aren't just theoretical, they're practical skills that can enhance our everyday decision-making processes. The significance of an inquisitive attitude. Exploring the value of having an inquisitive mindset means prioritizing the question why over simply asking how, as this approach encourages a deeper understanding. Remaining curious about what seems ordinary or just about everything that happens every day, it gains you and unveils you valuable insights and discoveries. Embracing various perspectives enriches our understanding of different viewpoints, which is essential in our interconnected world. Maintaining curiosity nurtures open-mindedness and supports ongoing learning, while speculative attitude in philosophy is the imagination is key. It allows us to envision possibilities beyond our current reality. Consider it like opening a door to new worlds and solutions. Second, a willingness to entertain unfamiliar or unconventional ideas is crucial. It's about stepping out of our comfort zones and exploring the unknown. Perhaps think of this as an adventure for the mind. What new ideas might you encounter? Lastly, embrace doubt as a tool for intellectual freedom. Doubt isn't a sign of weakness. Rather, it's a gateway to deeper understanding and liberation from preconceived notions. So let's delve into the practical value of philosophy. First, philosophy enhances critical thinking. It sharpens our ability to analyze and evaluate arguments, making us better problem solvers in everyday life. Next, it broadens our intellectual imagination. Philosophy encourages us to think beyond the conventional, explore new ideas, and see the world from different angles. This expansion of thought can lead to innovation and creativity. Moreover, philosophy promotes justice, empathy, and freedom. By questioning norms and considering various perspectives, we foster a more inclusive and understanding society. It cultivates humility and openness, reminding us that our current knowledge is just a starting point for deeper exploration. As we delve into the purpose of studying philosophy, it becomes clear that it's not about finding definitive answers. Instead, philosophy serves the sake of the questions themselves. It's about expanding our imagination and freeing our minds from prejudice. Consider how this approach helps us achieve a sense of union with the universe. It's a profound journey that Russell suggests, one that enhances our intellectual landscape and enriches our understanding of existence. By embracing this mindset, we allow ourselves to engage with the world in a more meaningful way, nurturing a sense of openness and curiosity. This concludes Russell's insights on why philosophy is studied not for answers, but for the boundless possibilities it offers. So, in summary, philosophy is the love of wisdom and pursuit of fundamental questions, nourishment for the mind, not just practical utility, and it expands our intellectual horizons. Philosophical problems are universal, speculative, and open-ended. Philosophy, at its core, is rooted in wonder. It challenges us to examine life through critical thought, inviting us to expand our vision of life and reality. This exploration enlarges our intellectual horizons, encouraging a more profound understanding of the world around us. Inquisitive and speculative attitude are fostered by wonder, intellectual humility, and openness to possibilities. It helps us live more reflective and meaningful lives. Together, these attitudes helps us live more reflective and meaningful lives, encouraging us to continuously question and explore. Philosophy helps us to question assumptions, develop openness and empathy, and find meaning beyond material concern. By embracing these principles, we enrich our personal growth and contribute to a more thoughtful society. Practical relevance. Philosophy equips us for leadership, ethical decision making, and resilience in cases of uncertainty. Philosophy demonstrates its practical relevance by equipping individuals with competencies that are both essential in personal and societal contexts. It fosters leadership, guides ethical decision making, and strengthens resilience in the face of uncertainty. In the Philippine setting, these capacities are particularly significant as they contribute to shaping individuals into responsible and engaged citizens capable of addressing the nation's complex social realities. Philosophy is to be studied not for the sake of any definite answers to its questions, but for the sake of the questions themselves. Bertrand Russell. As Bertrand Russell emphasizes, the true value of philosophy does not rest on the attainment of definite answers to its questions, but rather on the very pursuit of these questions themselves. This continual process of inquiry cultivates critical reflection, intellectual openness, and the capacity to evaluate diverse perspectives. Thus, philosophy not only prepares individuals for practical challenges, but also nurtures a deeper engagement with the human condition, reinforcing its indispensable role in both personal development and nation building. Thank you for listening to our group presentation about Bertrand Russell.